Hello there and welcome. Tonight we're drifting towards something vast, something ancient, and something quietly powerful. Far beyond Earth, beyond the familiar glow of the night sky, there is a world so large that more than 1,000 Earths could fit inside it. A planet that has been watching the solar system evolve for billions of years, turning slowly in the dark, wrapped in clouds we still don't fully understand. This is Jupiter. We often think we know it. We've seen the stripes, the giant red storm, the bright dot beside the moon. But the truth is, Jupiter remains one of the most mysterious places in our solar system. We don't really know what lies at its core. We don't know how deep its storms go. We don't even know exactly how its powerful magnetic field truly works. For example, one of Jupiter's moons may hold an ocean beneath miles of ice. An ocean that contains more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. And that ocean is warmed, not by sunlight, but by gravity itself. A quiet, invisible force stretching and releasing the moon over and over again, creating heat in total darkness. And somehow, that's not frightening. It's comforting, because Jupiter doesn't rush. Its storms can last for centuries. Its moons move in slow, repeating rhythms. Everything about this system reminds us that not all change needs urgency, and not all power needs noise. Tonight isn't about memorizing facts or learning complicated science. It's about drifting through Jupiter's vast family of worlds, letting your thoughts slow as gravity takes over. You don't need to stay focused. You don't need to remember anything. Just allow these ideas to move gently through your mind, the way Jupiter's moons move through space. Slow, steady, and calm. Before we start, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Now plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's drift into this amazing topic together. When you first begin to imagine Jupiter, it helps to let go of the idea of speed and motion and instead think in terms of presence. Jupiter is not a planet that rushes or flashes past. It exists as something immense and steady, quietly holding its place in the solar system. Even from far away, its size makes itself known. Jupiter is so large that if you lined up every other planet in our solar system side by side, they would still not match its mass. This isn't something you need to picture all at once. It's enough to sense that Jupiter is less like a destination and more like a region of space, a vast gravitational presence that shapes everything nearby simply by being there. One of the most grounding things about Jupiter is how slowly its scale reveals itself. From Earth, it appears as a bright, calm point of light, often mistaken for a star. But behind that gentle glow is a world more than 11 times wider than our planet. If Earth were the size of a small marble, Jupiter would be closer to a large beach ball, resting quietly in the dark. This difference in scale changes how time feels when thinking about Jupiter. Movements that might seem dramatic on Earth become almost unnoticeable there. Size softens motion. Immensity absorbs urgency. The larger something is, the less it seems to hurry. Jupiter's size also means that it carries most of the non-solar mass in the entire solar system. More than 2/3 of the planetary material orbiting the Sun belongs to Jupiter alone. This makes it less like just another planet and more like a partner to the Sun, helping to balance and stabilize the space around it. For billions of years, Jupiter's gravity has quietly shaped the paths of asteroids and comets, often pulling them away from the inner solar system. Without Jupiter, Earth's history would look very different. Its presence has acted like a slow-moving shield, not through action or force, but through constant, steady influence. What makes this even more calming to consider is that Jupiter does all of this without solid ground beneath its clouds. Unlike Earth, Jupiter doesn't have a clear surface you could stand on. Instead, it is made mostly of deep, thick layers of gas that grow denser the farther down you go. The idea of a planet without a surface might sound unsettling at first, but in Jupiter's case, it adds to its softness. There is no sharp boundary where Jupiter begins or ends. Its atmosphere gradually thickens, layer by layer, until gas slowly becomes something heavier. This gradual change makes Jupiter feel less like a solid object and more like a vast, floating presence. Because Jupiter has no solid surface, its size is defined by where its atmosphere fades into space. Even that boundary is gentle. There is no sudden edge, no abrupt stop. The planet simply becomes thinner and thinner until it blends into the surrounding darkness. This makes Jupiter feel less confined and more expansive, as though it is always reaching outward. When you imagine drifting near Jupiter, there is no single point you must focus on. Everywhere you look, there is more planet, more depth, more space to rest your attention. Another quiet truth about Jupiter's scale is how quickly it rotates compared to its size. Jupiter completes a full rotation in just under 10 hours, making its days much shorter than Earth's. Yet because the planet is so enormous, this fast rotation doesn't feel frantic. Instead, it creates wide, flowing cloud bands that stretch smoothly around the planet. Motion on Jupiter is spread across such a vast area that even fast movement appears calm. This is a reminder that speed does not always feel the same at every scale. On a world as large as Jupiter, even rapid rotation becomes something slow and graceful. Jupiter's immense size also affects how it holds heat. Even though it is far from the Sun, Jupiter radiates more heat than it receives. This heat comes from deep within, leftover energy from its formation billions of years ago. The planet has been slowly releasing this warmth ever since, like a massive ember cooling at an almost imperceptible pace. This internal heat contributes to Jupiter's long-lasting storms and flowing atmosphere, but it also reinforces the sense that Jupiter exists on timelines far beyond human experience. Nothing there happens quickly. Everything unfolds over years, decades, and centuries. When you think about Jupiter as a whole, it can help to imagine it not as a single object, but as a system within itself. Its gravity extends far into space, influencing dozens of moons and shaping the space around them. Jupiter doesn't need to move toward these moons to affect them. Its size allows it to remain still while everything else adjusts around it. This quiet authority, this ability to shape without effort, is part of what makes Jupiter such a calming presence to imagine. Even the way Jupiter looks reinforces this feeling. Its soft bands of color, made of clouds moving at different speeds, wrap around the planet like layers of fabric. There are no hard lines, no sharp edges. The colors blend gradually, reminding us that Jupiter is defined by flow rather than structure. When you let your eyes drift across images of Jupiter, there is nothing to latch onto that demands attention. The planet invites you to wander slowly, to take in the whole rather than focus on details. Jupiter's size also means that distance behaves differently near it. Space feels fuller, heavier, more occupied. You are never really alone near Jupiter because its presence fills the surrounding region. This can feel surprisingly comforting. Instead of emptiness, there is a sense of being held within a larger system. Jupiter doesn't pull you in suddenly. Its gravity is felt gradually, long before you ever reach the planet itself. As you rest with this idea of scale, you may notice your own sense of urgency beginning to soften. Jupiter doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. Its existence alone is enough to influence everything nearby. There is no pressure to arrive, no expectation to change. Jupiter simply is, vast and steady, turning slowly in the darkness, offering a reminder that not everything meaningful needs to happen quickly, and that sometimes the most powerful forces are the ones that move so gently they barely seem to move at all, allowing your thoughts to drift alongside that immense presence, settling into the calm rhythm of something far larger than the moment you're in now. When you move closer to Jupiter in your imagination, the first thing that becomes clear is that this is not a planet you land on. It is a planet you drift into. Jupiter is made almost entirely of clouds, stacked one above another in thick, endless layers. There is no solid ground waiting beneath them, no surface where motion suddenly stops. Instead, Jupiter's atmosphere stretches downward for thousands of miles, slowly growing denser as you descend. These clouds are not light or wispy like the ones above Earth. They are massive, heavy systems made of gas, ice crystals, and particles moving together in slow, powerful streams. Thinking about Jupiter this way can feel strangely calming because there is no edge to reach, no place where you are expected to arrive. Everything is gradual. Everything blends. The planet becomes less like an object and more like an experience of depth. As you imagine floating near Jupiter, you are surrounded by motion that does not rush, by layers that do not compete with one another. Each level of cloud exists peacefully above the next, all moving at their own pace. This layered structure is one of Jupiter's defining features. It turns the planet into a kind of soft giant, vast but not sharp, powerful but not abrupt. Even the idea of falling through Jupiter's atmosphere feels slow and suspended rather than sudden. The deeper you go, the thicker the air becomes, pressing gently instead of forcefully, creating the sense that Jupiter is built to hold rather than to drop, to surround rather than to confront, inviting the mind to settle into the feeling of endless depth and quiet motion. Jupiter's famous bands, those wide stripes that wrap around the planet, are created by these cloud layers moving at different speeds. Some bands travel faster, others slower, all circling the planet in smooth, repeating paths. The lighter bands rise slightly higher, while the darker ones sink a bit lower, creating contrast without conflict. There is no single direction they must follow beyond the rhythm set by the planet's rotation. This constant movement never reaches a final shape. The clouds are always rearranging themselves, yet the overall pattern remains stable for decades. That balance between change and consistency is one of the most comforting aspects of Jupiter's atmosphere. Nothing stays fixed, but nothing collapses into chaos either. The planet breathes in its own way, cycling energy through its clouds without interruption. When you watch Jupiter's bands, you are seeing time expressed as motion rather than urgency. These cloud systems have existed longer than human history, moving steadily while centuries pass unnoticed below. Even dramatic features are absorbed into the larger flow. Storms stretch and twist, then soften back into the surrounding bands. Everything becomes part of the whole. The clouds remind us that movement does not have to mean progress, and change does not require pressure. On Jupiter, motion exists for its own sake, flowing endlessly around the planet, allowing the mind to follow without needing to reach a destination or understand every turn it takes. Color on Jupiter comes from depth and chemistry, but it also serves a calming role in how the planet feels. Soft creams, muted browns, pale yellows, and gentle reds blend together across the cloud tops. None of these colors are harsh. None demand attention. They fade into one another the way evening light fades into night. These colors form because sunlight interacts with the gases high in Jupiter's atmosphere, while deeper layers remain hidden below. You are only ever seeing the uppermost portion of something far larger. That limitation can feel reassuring. You are not meant to see everything at once. Jupiter offers only what can be seen comfortably from afar. Beneath the visible clouds, conditions change slowly. Pressure increases. Temperatures rise. But these changes happen gradually, without clear boundaries. There is no sudden shift from one state to another. Everything transitions gently, layer by layer. This gradualness is part of what makes Jupiter's atmosphere feel safe to imagine. Even its extremes are softened by scale. Nothing happens all at once. Everything unfolds over vast distances. When your mind rests on these layered clouds, it begins to mirror their rhythm. Thoughts become less sharp, more blended. Ideas no longer need to stand apart. They can drift together, overlapping and separating naturally, just as Jupiter's colors do, forming a quiet, continuous tapestry that invites attention without demanding it. Another remarkable feature of Jupiter's atmosphere is how deep it extends before becoming something else entirely. As you move downward through the clouds, gas slowly becomes thicker, heavier, and more compressed. Eventually, it begins to behave more like a liquid than a gas. This transition is not sudden. There is no clear point where one state ends and another begins. Instead, everything shifts gradually, responding to pressure and gravity over thousands of miles. This slow transformation makes Jupiter feel less mechanical and more organic. It behaves like a living system rather than a rigid structure. Even deeper still, hydrogen changes into an unusual form that can conduct electricity, contributing to Jupiter's powerful magnetic field. But all of this happens far below the clouds you see, hidden within the planet's immense body. The visible atmosphere acts as a soft boundary, shielding the complexity beneath. For the listener, this means there is no need to imagine what lies at the center. Jupiter allows you to remain at the surface, where motion is gentle and patterns are familiar. The unseen depths exist, but they do not intrude. This separation can feel comforting. You are not required to go deeper than you wish. Jupiter's clouds form a kind of protective layer, a reminder that not everything needs to be explored fully to be appreciated. Sometimes it is enough to stay where things feel calm and readable, letting the deeper mysteries remain at rest below. The winds that shape Jupiter's clouds are among the fastest in the solar system, yet they do not feel violent when imagined at scale. Speeds that would seem extreme on Earth are absorbed by the planet's size. These winds travel smoothly around the globe, guided by the planet's rapid rotation. Instead of creating chaos, they reinforce structure, maintaining the wide bands and long-lasting storms. This balance between speed and stability offers an important perspective. Motion alone does not create urgency. Context matters. On Jupiter, even powerful winds become part of a steady, repeating system. They are not racing toward an outcome. They are circulating endlessly and predictably. This kind of motion can help the mind let go of the idea that faster always means more intense. Sometimes speed simply means flow. Jupiter's atmosphere teaches this quietly, without explanation. The clouds do not resist the winds that carry them. They move together, adjusting gently, maintaining balance over time. When you picture these winds, there is no sound, no rush of air in your ears. Space is silent. The motion exists without noise. That silence allows the movement to feel smooth and distant, like watching currents in deep water rather than standing in a storm. The mind can observe without reacting, letting the image settle softly into awareness. As you remain with the image of Jupiter's cloud-covered body, the idea of a planet without a surface begins to feel less strange and more soothing. There is no finish line, no ground that signals the end of motion. Everything continues, layer after layer, movement without arrival. This can gently loosen the mind's habit of seeking conclusions. Jupiter does not offer them. It offers continuity instead. The clouds keep moving. The bands keep circling. The colors keep blending. Nothing asks to be resolved. Nothing insists on being understood fully. The planet simply exists in a state of ongoing motion and balance. As your attention follows these endless patterns, it may begin to slow, matching the steady pace of Jupiter's atmosphere. Thoughts can become less defined, less urgent. Like the clouds, they can move without direction, change shape without pressure, and remain part of something larger without needing to stand out. The atmosphere becomes a place where the mind can rest, floating gently within layers of motion that have no beginning and no end, continuing quietly as your awareness drifts alongside them, unhurried and calm. When people hear the word storm, they often imagine noise, destruction, and sudden change. But storms on Jupiter tell a very different story. On this immense planet, storms are not brief events that arrive and vanish. They are slow, stable systems that can last for decades, centuries, or even longer. Jupiter's storms move with patience rather than urgency, shaped by the planet's vast size and steady energy. Instead of breaking apart quickly, they settle into long-term patterns, circling the planet again and again. This stability comes from the scale of Jupiter itself. The planet is so large that even powerful motions are spread out and softened. Storms become part of the atmosphere rather than interruptions within it. When you imagine a Jovian storm, It helps to let go of Earth-based expectations. There is no sudden beginning or dramatic ending. The storm simply exists, turning slowly, balanced by the surrounding winds. This reframing changes how the mind responds. Instead of tension, there is continuity. Instead of chaos, there is rhythm. Jupiter's storms are not fighting against the planet. They are expressions of it. They move because the atmosphere moves. They persist because the energy that feeds them is constant. Thinking about storms in this way can be surprisingly calming. It reminds us that movement does not have to mean disruption, and power does not need to be loud. On Jupiter, even the largest storms feel settled, as though they have found a comfortable place within the planet's endless flow, inviting the mind to observe without bracing or expecting change. One of the reasons Jupiter's storms last so long is that the planet provides a steady supply of energy from within. Unlike Earth, where storms are driven mostly by sunlight warming the surface, Jupiter generates much of its own heat deep inside. This internal warmth rises slowly through the atmosphere, feeding storms gently but continuously. There is no rush, no sudden burst that burns itself out. The energy moves upward at a pace that supports longevity. This slow supply allows storms to remain stable instead of collapsing. Jupiter's atmosphere does not depend on daily cycles of heating and cooling the way Earth's does. There is no sunrise or sunset boundary driving rapid changes. Everything unfolds on longer timescales. Storms can settle into balance with their surroundings, adjusting slightly without losing their structure. This creates systems that feel almost timeless. When you imagine these storms, you are not watching something build toward an outcome. You are witnessing a state of being. The storm exists because the planet exists. It is sustained by conditions that rarely change. This steady relationship between energy and motion removes the sense of urgency that storms often carry in our minds. Instead of preparing for impact, the mind can rest in observation. The storm becomes something to drift alongside, not something to escape. This perspective can be deeply soothing, especially when thinking about how often we associate movement with stress. Jupiter quietly demonstrates that motion can be stable and that long-lasting systems can arise from gentle, continuous support rather than sudden force or conflict. Another calming aspect of Jupiter's storms is their sheer size. Many of them are larger than entire continents on Earth, yet they do not overwhelm the planet. They fit naturally into the wide bands of clouds, like slow-moving currents in a vast ocean. Their edges are not sharp. They blend gradually into the surrounding atmosphere, making it difficult to say exactly where the storm begins or ends. This softness of boundary helps the storm feel less threatening. It is not an object invading space, but a pattern emerging within it. The immense scale of Jupiter allows these storms to exist without dominating everything around them. There is always more atmosphere beyond them, more space for motion to continue. This sense of abundance reduces tension. Nothing feels crowded or compressed. The storm has room to breathe. When you picture a Jovian storm, imagine it as part of a flowing system rather than a single event. It turns slowly, shaped by winds above and below it, responding gently to changes without losing its form. Even when storms shift or change shape, they do so gradually. There is time for adjustment. There is no sudden collapse. This gradual change reinforces the idea that stability does not mean stillness. On Jupiter, stability means movement that remains within balance, allowing even large storms to feel calm and contained within the planet's endless atmosphere. Jupiter's storms are also guided by powerful jet streams that flow around the planet in alternating directions. These streams act like invisible lanes, keeping storms in place and preventing them from drifting too far north or south. This guidance adds another layer of stability. Storms are not free to wander randomly. They are held within predictable paths that repeat over time. This predictability brings a sense of order that the mind can rest in. Even as storms rotate and shift, they do so within known boundaries. The planet's rapid rotation strengthens these jet streams, reinforcing the structure of the atmosphere rather than tearing it apart. This is another reminder that speed does not always create chaos. On Jupiter, faster rotation actually supports balance. The storms respond to this rotation by stretching and flattening rather than breaking apart. They become elongated, smooth, and persistent. This interaction between motion and structure creates a visual rhythm that feels steady and unhurried. Watching Jupiter's storms through this lens can help the mind release its habit of expecting disruption. Instead of bracing for change, the mind can settle into the idea that some systems are built to last, adapting quietly while remaining fundamentally the same. Jupiter's storms show us that stability can emerge from movement when conditions support harmony rather than competition. Another gentle truth about Jupiter's storms is that they do not interact with land or solid surfaces. There are no mountains to break them apart, no continents to weaken them. Without these interruptions, storms are free to maintain their shape. They are not forced to expend energy navigating obstacles. Instead, they move through open atmosphere, adjusting smoothly to pressure differences and surrounding winds. This freedom contributes to their longevity. Nothing stands in their way. There is no friction to wear them down quickly. This absence of resistance allows storms to remain calm even when they are powerful. Strength does not have to be forceful when there is space to move. This idea can feel comforting when applied beyond Jupiter. The storms remind us that struggle often arises from resistance, not from motion itself. On Jupiter, motion flows freely and strength becomes quiet. The storms are not fighting the planet. They are supported by it. They exist in cooperation with their environment rather than opposition. This cooperation allows them to persist without stress. Imagining this can help the listener soften their own sense of resistance, allowing thoughts and emotions to move without pushing against them, trusting that flow can be sustained when obstacles are removed. As you continue to rest with the image of Jupiter's endless storms, they may begin to feel less like disturbances and more like companions in motion. They are reminders that not all turbulence is destructive, and not all change requires urgency. Jupiter's storms move slowly, last quietly, and remain balanced within a system that has supported them for ages. There is no deadline they must meet, no outcome they must achieve. They simply continue, turning gently within the planet's vast atmosphere. This steady continuation can mirror the way thoughts move when the mind begins to relax. Ideas may circulate without resolution, emotions may rise and settle without force, and nothing needs to be concluded. The storms become part of a larger rhythm, just as thoughts become part of awareness. In this way, Jupiter's storms offer a soft lesson in patience and endurance, allowing attention to drift alongside their slow rotation, following motion without pressure, remaining present without expectation, as the vast atmosphere continues to carry everything forward in its own calm, unhurried way. When you think about Jupiter's great red spot, it helps to let go of the idea that it is simply a storm. It is more accurate to think of it as a presence, something that has existed quietly for longer than any human life. The Great Red Spot has been observed for more than 300 years, meaning it was already turning when the first telescopes were pointed toward the sky. Generation after generation has watched it continue, slowly rotating within Jupiter's vast atmosphere. This kind of longevity changes how time feels. On Earth, storms are temporary, measured in hours or days. On Jupiter, this storm spans centuries, reminding us that nature does not always move on human schedules. The Great Red Spot does not rush toward an ending. It does not need to resolve itself. It simply continues, shaped by the steady conditions around it. Imagining this can feel grounding. There is comfort in something that does not hurry, something that remains even as everything else changes. The storm has grown and shrunk over time, adjusting its size gently, but it has never truly disappeared. This persistence suggests patience rather than intensity. The Great Red Spot is not violent in the way we often imagine storms. It is calm in its endurance. Its motion is steady, predictable, and balanced by the surrounding winds. When you rest your attention on this idea, the mind may begin to release its habit of expecting quick outcomes. Some things last because they are supported, not because they are forceful. The Great Red Spot exists because Jupiter allows it to, holding it in place through quiet balance and time. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Great Red Spot is its size. At its widest, it has been large enough to swallow Earth whole, with room to spare. Even now, after slowly shrinking over the decades, it remains enormous by any familiar standard. Yet despite this scale, it does not dominate Jupiter's appearance. It fits naturally within the planet's broad cloud bands, like a slow-moving eddy in a wide river. This balance between size and harmony is part of what makes the storm feel calming rather than overwhelming. The Great Red Spot is large, but it is not intrusive. It turns within a space designed to hold it. Its edges are smooth, blending gradually into the surrounding atmosphere. There is no sharp boundary, no sense of collision. The storm rotates counter to the surrounding winds, creating a gentle tension that helps maintain its structure. This interaction is stable rather than aggressive. The storm and its environment support one another. When you imagine drifting above Jupiter and watching the Great Red Spot from afar, there is no sense of danger. There is only slow movement, wide curves, and steady rhythm. The storm becomes less about power and more about continuity. Its size encourages the mind to zoom out, to see the larger system rather than focus on detail. This widening of perspective can ease mental tension. Problems feel smaller when placed beside something so vast and patient. The Great Red Spot invites the mind to rest within scale, to allow perspective itself to become a form of calm. The color of the Great Red Spot has long captured attention, but even this striking feature can be understood gently. Its reddish tones come from chemical interactions in Jupiter's upper atmosphere, shaped by sunlight and time. The exact cause of the color is still not fully understood, and it has changed subtly over the years, sometimes appearing deep red, other times more pale or orange. This uncertainty does not make the storm unsettling. Instead, it adds softness. The storm does not need to be fully explained to be appreciated. Its color shifts slowly, reflecting changes that happen over long periods rather than sudden events. This gradual transformation reinforces the idea that Jupiter's atmosphere operates on a different clock. Nothing changes quickly enough to demand attention. Even visible differences unfold over decades. The Great Red Spot teaches patience simply by existing. It shows that something can remain recognizable while still evolving gently. The mind does not need to track every change. It is enough to know that the storm continues, adjusting quietly as conditions shift around it. The red color, spread across such a large area, appears muted rather than harsh. It blends with surrounding clouds, softening its impact. When you imagine this color floating within Jupiter's atmosphere, it feels warm rather than alarming, like embers glowing slowly rather than flames burning fiercely. This warmth contributes to the sense of calm, allowing the storm to feel like a long-lived companion rather than a threat. Another calming truth about the Great Red Spot is how deeply it extends into Jupiter's atmosphere. This storm is not just a surface feature. It reaches far below the visible clouds, anchoring itself within deeper layers of gas. This depth helps explain its stability. The storm is rooted in the planet, connected to long-term flows that change very slowly. It is not easily disrupted because it is supported from below. This connection to deeper layers adds to the feeling that the storm belongs where it is. It is not temporary or fragile. It is integrated into Jupiter's atmospheric system. Imagining this depth can feel reassuring. The storm is not floating aimlessly. It is held in place by the planet itself. Even when winds shift or nearby storms form and fade, the Great Red Spot remains, supported by conditions that extend far beyond what can be seen. This hidden support mirrors how stability often works in life. The most enduring things are anchored in layers we do not notice. They persist not because they resist change, but because they are connected to something deeper. The Great Red Spot quietly demonstrates this principle, rotating steadily while unseen forces maintain its balance. There is no need for effort or struggle. The storm simply continues, sustained by the slow movement of energy within Jupiter's immense body. Over time, scientists have observed that the Great Red Spot is slowly shrinking. This change has been happening so gradually that it is only noticeable when comparing images taken decades apart. The storm's shape has become more compact, its edges slightly smoother. Yet even this change does not feel like decline. It feels like adaptation. The storm is adjusting to new conditions while remaining fundamentally itself. This slow evolution reinforces the idea that change does not have to be sudden or disruptive. On Jupiter, even transformation happens gently. The Great Red Spot shows that something can change without losing its identity. It continues to rotate, to maintain its rhythm, to exist within Jupiter's atmosphere despite shifting conditions. This can feel comforting when reflected inward. Change does not always mean loss. Sometimes it is simply a quiet adjustment over time. The storm's persistence through change highlights the patience of planetary time. There is no rush to become something else. There is no pressure to remain exactly the same. Everything unfolds slowly, with space to adapt. The mind can take comfort in this pace, releasing the fear that change must be abrupt or overwhelming. Jupiter's most famous storm continues to turn, not in defiance of time, but in cooperation with it. As you rest with the image of the Great Red Spot, it may begin to feel less like a storm and more like a steady companion in motion. It turns and turns, century after century, without urgency or demand. There is no moment when it needs attention. It does not announce itself loudly. It simply exists within Jupiter's vast atmosphere, a reminder that endurance can be quiet and strength can be patient. The storm does not hurry toward an ending. It does not resist change. It remains present, adjusting slowly, supported by the planet that holds it. This quiet persistence can gently influence the rhythm of thought. Ideas may circle without pressure. Emotions may rise and settle without force. Nothing needs to be resolved. Like the Great Red Spot, thoughts can exist within awareness without demanding action. The storm's slow rotation offers a steady pattern for the mind to follow, easing attention into a calmer pace. As Jupiter continues to turn in the darkness, its ancient storm remains, moving gently within a system that allows it to last, inviting awareness to drift alongside it, unhurried and steady, carried by the patience of planetary time. When you think about gravity, it's easy to imagine it as something active, something that pulls sharply or demands movement. But Jupiter's gravity works in a much quieter way. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush. It simply exists, shaping everything around it through constant presence. Jupiter is the most massive planet in the solar system, more than twice as massive as all the other planets combined. Because of this, its gravity reaches far into space, long before you ever come close to the planet itself. Objects passing nearby begin to feel its influence gently, their paths bending almost without notice. This slow shaping can feel calming to imagine. There is no sudden force, no violent tug. Instead, gravity works patiently, guiding motion over long distances and long periods of time. Jupiter does not need to move toward anything to affect it. Its mass alone is enough. This makes gravity feel less like an action and more like a presence, something that quietly organizes space. When you rest your thoughts on this idea, gravity becomes less intimidating and more reassuring. It creates order without effort, influence without noise. Jupiter's gravity is always there, steady and reliable, shaping orbits and paths in ways that unfold slowly. It reminds us that some of the most powerful forces in nature work best when they are constant and calm, allowing change to happen gradually, without urgency or struggle, simply through the quiet persistence of being. One of the most important ways Jupiter's gravity shapes the solar system is by influencing the paths of asteroids and comets. Far from the inner planets, Jupiter acts like a slow-moving guardian, It's gravity nudging many wandering objects into new trajectories. Sometimes it pulls them inward, sometimes it sends them outward, and sometimes it captures them temporarily as they pass by. These interactions happen over vast distances and long timescales. There is nothing sudden about them. An asteroid may feel Jupiter's influence long before it ever comes close, its path bending little by little. This gradual guidance has played a role in protecting the inner planets, including Earth, from frequent impacts. Jupiter doesn't block objects actively. It doesn't shield with force. Instead, its gravity quietly redirects motion, reshaping paths before they become dangerous. This kind of influence feels reassuring. It shows that protection does not always come from barriers or resistance. Sometimes it comes from gentle redirection. Jupiter's gravity has been performing this role for billions of years, steadily shaping the environment of the solar system without interruption. When you imagine this, it can feel comforting to know that order can arise from subtle influence rather than control. Jupiter does not chase objects. It allows them to respond naturally to its presence, reminding us that guidance does not need to be forceful to be effective. Jupiter's gravity also plays a central role in holding its large family of moons together. Dozens of moons move around the planet, each following a path shaped by Jupiter's immense mass. These moons do not drift randomly. Their orbits are stable, repeating, and predictable, guided by gravity that never changes its mind. Some moons move closer, others farther away, but all are held within a shared system. This creates a sense of rhythm and balance that feels deeply calming. The moons respond to Jupiter's gravity by settling into patterns that repeat over and over again. Nothing needs to be adjusted constantly. The system maintains itself. Gravity provides structure without rigidity, allowing movement while preserving order. When you imagine Jupiter and its moons, it can feel like watching a slow dance where each participant knows their place. The gravity does not force the moons to move. It allows them to move in harmony. This harmony has lasted for millions of years, showing how stability can emerge from constant motion. Even when moons interact with one another, tugging slightly as they pass, the system absorbs these changes smoothly. Nothing breaks. Nothing collapses. Everything adjusts gently. Jupiter's gravity becomes a quiet anchor, holding the entire system together while allowing each moon to follow its own path, reinforcing the idea that connection does not require control. Another gentle effect of Jupiter's gravity is how it shapes the planet itself. Because Jupiter is so massive, gravity compresses its interior layers, creating immense pressure deep within. This pressure affects how the planet behaves, from its internal heat to the way its atmosphere moves. Gravity holds Jupiter together without a solid surface, keeping its vast layers of gas bound in a stable form. Without this gravity, the planet would simply spread out into space. Instead, it remains whole, supported by its own mass. This self-supporting nature can feel comforting to reflect on. Jupiter does not rely on external forces to hold itself together. Its gravity creates cohesion from within. This internal balance allows the planet to maintain its shape and structure over immense spans of time. Gravity also influences how energy moves inside Jupiter, guiding heat upward in slow currents that feed atmospheric motion. These processes happen quietly, without visible signs of effort. Gravity does not rush them. It allows energy to rise at its own pace. This slow internal flow contributes to the planet's long-lasting features, including its storms and cloud bands. When you think about gravity in this way, it becomes less abstract and more like a steady foundation, quietly supporting everything above it, allowing the planet to exist as a single, unified presence. Jupiter's gravity also creates subtle interactions between its moons, known as gravitational rhythms. Some moons gently tug on one another as they orbit, stretching and releasing slightly over time. This stretching creates heat inside certain moons, powering volcanic activity or warming hidden oceans beneath icy surfaces. These effects are not sudden. They happen slowly, with each orbit adding a tiny amount of energy. Over time, that energy becomes significant. Gravity, once again, works patiently. It does not force change all at once. It accumulates influence gradually. This slow buildup shows how gentle forces can lead to meaningful outcomes without urgency. The moons respond naturally, adjusting to the constant pull and release. Nothing is rushed. Everything unfolds over long periods. This process can feel deeply calming to imagine, because it removes the idea that change must be immediate or dramatic. Jupiter's gravity demonstrates that steady influence, applied consistently, can shape entire worlds. It does not hurry the process. It allows it to happen naturally. This perspective can soften the mind's tendency to expect quick results. Sometimes, the most profound changes come from forces that are always present, quietly shaping the future without demanding attention. As you rest with the idea of gravity as a quiet sculptor, Jupiter becomes less about motion and more about influence. It does not need to move dramatically to shape its surroundings. Its presence alone is enough. Everything nearby responds gently, adjusting paths and rhythms without resistance. Gravity does not compete or overwhelm. It supports and guides. This quiet guidance can feel deeply reassuring, especially when thoughts feel heavy or scattered. Jupiter's gravity reminds us that order does not require effort and stability does not require force. It simply requires consistency. The planet continues to shape space around it without pause, without intention, without urgency. Its gravity remains steady, allowing systems to form, persist, and evolve at their own pace. As your thoughts drift alongside this idea, they may begin to settle into a similar rhythm, moving gently, guided by something constant rather than driven by pressure. There is no need to arrive anywhere. There is no need to change anything quickly. Like the paths shaped by Jupiter's gravity, everything can unfold naturally, held within a quiet influence that allows motion, rest, and balance to exist together, continuing softly within the vast, unseen structure that surrounds them. When you begin to think about Jupiter's magnetic field, it helps to imagine it not as something sharp or dangerous, but as a vast, invisible bubble surrounding the planet. This magnetic bubble is the largest structure in the entire solar system created by a single planet. It stretches millions of miles into space, far beyond Jupiter itself, quietly shaping the region around it. Jupiter's magnetic field is so large that if it were visible from Earth, it would appear larger than the moon in the night sky. Yet despite its size, it does not feel overwhelming. It feels protective. Like a gentle boundary, it marks a space where Jupiter's presence is felt long before the planet is seen. This field is created by motion deep inside Jupiter, where immense pressure turns hydrogen into an unusual state that can carry electrical currents. Those currents generate magnetism steadily, without interruption. There is no switch turning it on or off. It has been flowing for billions of years. The idea of such a constant force can feel deeply reassuring. Jupiter's magnetic field does not react to every change around it. It remains steady, shaping space quietly and continuously. When solar particles stream outward from the sun, this magnetic bubble meets them calmly, redirecting and guiding them around the planet. Instead of chaos, there is structure. Instead of collision, there is deflection. This invisible shield does not need attention to function. It simply exists, expanding the sense of Jupiter from a single world into a vast region of influence, where space itself feels held and organized. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jupiter's magnetic field is how far it reaches compared to the planet itself. While Jupiter's visible clouds form a clear boundary for the eye, its magnetic influence extends far beyond that edge, surrounding many of its moons and shaping their environment. Some of Jupiter's moons orbit entirely within this magnetic bubble, moving through streams of charged particles that are guided by the field's invisible lines. This creates a sense that Jupiter is not just a planet, but a system that includes everything moving within its reach. The magnetic field connects the planet to its moons in subtle ways, linking them through space even when they are separated by great distances. This connection is not forceful. It is steady and predictable. The field does not pull the moons toward Jupiter. It simply surrounds them, creating an environment that remains consistent over time. When you imagine drifting through this space, there is no sensation of being pushed or threatened. There is only a quiet awareness that you are within something larger, something structured. The magnetic field becomes a kind of invisible landscape, shaping how energy moves without demanding attention. This idea can feel comforting. It suggests that not all protection is visible, and not all boundaries are solid. Some of the most important structures exist quietly, guiding and supporting without being seen, allowing everything within them to move freely while still remaining connected. Jupiter's magnetic field also interacts with particles coming from the Sun, creating powerful auroras near the planet's poles. These auroras are similar to Earth's northern and southern lights, but far more intense. They glow constantly, fed by Jupiter's strong magnetic field and rapid rotation. Unlike Earth's auroras, which appear only during certain conditions, Jupiter's auroras are always present, slowly shifting and shimmering. This constancy adds to the sense that Jupiter's environment is stable rather than reactive. The magnetic field does not wait for special moments to display its effects. It operates continuously, turning streams of charged particles into soft, glowing patterns high above the planet. These lights are not sudden flashes. They are steady emissions, changing gently over time. Imagining these auroras can feel soothing. They are expressions of energy being guided rather than released violently. The magnetic field channels movement into light, transforming invisible forces into something calm and beautiful. This transformation reinforces the idea that power does not need to be destructive. It can be expressive, gentle, and ongoing. Jupiter's auroras glow without sound, without urgency, marking the poles of a planet that exists within its own quiet rhythm. The magnetic field remains at work behind the scenes, shaping these lights patiently, offering a reminder that even intense energy can be guided into peaceful forms when held within stable boundaries. Another quiet effect of Jupiter's magnetic field is how it influences the space environment around the planet, creating what is known as a magnetosphere. This region traps charged particles and guides them along magnetic paths, forming belts that circle Jupiter. These belts are filled with energy, yet they remain organized by the field structure. Nothing spills outward uncontrollably. Everything follows invisible routes defined by the planet's magnetism. This order adds to the feeling that Jupiter's magnetic field is not chaotic, but carefully balanced. The magnetosphere acts like a container, holding energy in place rather than allowing it to scatter randomly. This containment can feel reassuring when imagined. Even powerful forces can exist within limits, guided by unseen structure. Jupiter's magnetosphere is so large that it interacts with the solar wind long before the planet itself is reached. The magnetic field gently pushes against the flowing particles from the Sun, creating a boundary where two invisible systems meet and adjust to one another. There is no explosion, no sudden clash. The interaction is gradual and continuous. This steady adjustment highlights how balance is maintained in space. Forces meet, respond, and settle without disruption. Jupiter's magnetic field becomes a mediator, shaping the space around it into a region of calm interaction rather than conflict, reinforcing the sense that even powerful systems can coexist peacefully. Jupiter's rapid rotation plays an important role in strengthening its magnetic field. The planet spins quickly, completing a full turn in less than 10 hours, and this motion helps drive the electrical currents deep inside that sustain the magnetic field. Yet once again, speed does not translate into stress. The rotation is smooth and consistent, supporting stability rather than disruption. This connection between motion and magnetism feels harmonious. The planet's movement feeds the field, and the field shapes the space around the planet, creating a continuous loop of influence. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. The system sustains itself naturally. This self-sustaining quality can feel deeply calming to reflect on. Jupiter does not need external input to maintain its magnetic field. It arises from the planet's own structure and motion. The field remains strong and stable over immense periods of time, unaffected by short-term changes. This long-term consistency contributes to the feeling of protection associated with Jupiter's magnetic bubble. It suggests reliability. The planet continues to generate this invisible shield without effort or interruption. When you imagine being within this magnetic region, there is no need to brace yourself. The environment is steady, shaped by forces that have been in balance for billions of years. The magnetic field quietly reinforces the sense that Jupiter is not just massive, but deeply stable. As you continue to rest with the idea of Jupiter's magnetic bubble, it may begin to feel less like a scientific concept and more like a spacious presence. This invisible field expands the planet far beyond its clouds, turning empty space into something structured and held. Nothing within this region needs to hurry or struggle. Energy moves along guided paths. Moons travel within predictable environments. Light glows steadily at the poles. The magnetic field remains constant, shaping space without being seen. This quiet influence can gently affect the rhythm of thought, encouraging a sense of safety and expansion at the same time. There is space to drift, and there is structure to support that drifting. Jupiter's magnetic field does not confine. It surrounds. It does not restrict movement. It guides it softly. As awareness lingers on this vast, protective presence, the mind may begin to mirror its steadiness, settling into a feeling of being held within something larger, something calm and enduring, where motion and rest exist together, quietly balanced within the unseen boundaries that continue to shape the space around them. As attention slowly moves away from Jupiter itself, it naturally drifts outward toward the many worlds that travel alongside it. Jupiter is not alone in space. It is surrounded by a vast family of moons, more than any other planet in the solar system. These moons vary widely in size, shape, and character, yet they are all held gently within Jupiter's gravitational reach. Some are small and irregular, shaped like rough stones drifting quietly through space. Others are large enough to be considered worlds in their own right. This collection of companions turns Jupiter into a system rather than a single object. When you imagine this family, it can feel comforting to know that nothing orbits in isolation. Each moon follows a steady path, repeating the same gentle journey around the planet over and over again. There is no rush, no deviation, no need to decide where to go next. The moons move as they always have, guided by gravity that remains constant. This repetition creates a sense of calm rhythm. Jupiter's moons do not compete with one another. They coexist, each occupying its own space and path. Some move closer, some farther away, but all remain connected through the planet's influence. This quiet companionship gives Jupiter's surroundings a feeling of fullness. Space no longer feels empty. It feels populated, active, yet peaceful. The idea of many worlds moving together can gently ease the mind, offering a picture of order and belonging that unfolds naturally without effort or noise. Among Jupiter's many moons are 4 especially large ones that were first seen centuries ago through early telescopes. These moons are so prominent that they stand out clearly even from Earth with simple instruments. Each of these large moons has its own personality, shaped by its position and history. Together, they form a kind of inner family, moving in predictable patterns that repeat endlessly. Their orbits are not random. They are locked into a rhythmic relationship, where the movement of one influences the others in subtle, repeating ways. This gravitational rhythm keeps their paths stable and orderly. When you imagine these moons circling Jupiter, it can feel like watching a slow, graceful dance where each participant knows exactly when and where to move. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is forced. The pattern has existed for millions of years, and it continues without interruption. This stability can feel deeply soothing. It suggests that balance does not require constant adjustment. Once a system finds harmony, it can maintain itself quietly. These moons remind us that movement does not have to lead to change. It can simply be repetition, a gentle return to the same place again and again. The predictability of their motion allows the mind to rest. There is comfort in knowing what comes next. Jupiter's largest moons follow paths that never surprise. They offer a steady visual rhythm that mirrors the slow breathing of the planet itself, reinforcing the sense that this system exists in calm continuity. Beyond the largest moons lies an even greater number of smaller companions, each with its own quiet story. Many of these moons are irregular in shape, likely captured long ago by Jupiter's gravity as they pass through space. These captured moons now move in distant orbits, some tilted, some stretched, all following paths shaped by the planet's immense mass. Their presence adds depth to Jupiter's family, showing that not all members formed together. Some arrived later, gently drawn in and held. This idea can feel comforting. It suggests that belonging does not require a shared beginning. Jupiter's gravity welcomes and integrates these distant moons, allowing them to become part of the system without conflict. They do not disrupt the inner moons. They simply take their place farther out, moving slowly and quietly. Their orbits take years, sometimes decades, to complete. This slow movement emphasizes patience. Nothing about these moons is rushed. They exist on long time scales, far removed from urgency. When you imagine them drifting in wide arcs around Jupiter, there is a sense of spaciousness. They travel through vast distances, yet remain connected to the planet. This balance between distance and connection can ease the mind, offering a reminder that space does not mean separation and that even far-flung paths can remain part of a larger whole. Jupiter's moons are shaped not only by gravity, but by their interactions with one another. Subtle gravitational poles stretch and release some moons as they orbit, creating internal warmth over time. This gentle stretching does not happen suddenly. It builds slowly, orbit after orbit, adding tiny amounts of energy that eventually make a difference. Some moons become volcanically active, while others may hide warm oceans beneath thick layers of ice. These changes are not dramatic from one moment to the next. They unfold gradually, shaped by repetition rather than force. This slow transformation can feel calming to reflect on. It shows that powerful outcomes do not always come from intense events. They can arise from small, steady influences applied over long periods. Jupiter's moon system becomes a quiet lesson in patience. Nothing needs to happen all at once. The moons respond to their environment gently, adjusting without resistance. This cooperative relationship between gravity and motion creates worlds that are dynamic yet stable. When you imagine these moons warming and cooling, stretching and settling, it can help soften the mind's tendency to expect sudden change. On Jupiter, evolution happens quietly, shaped by rhythms that repeat endlessly, allowing time itself to do the work without pressure. The sheer variety among Jupiter's moons adds to the sense of calm curiosity they inspire. Some are smooth and icy, reflecting faint sunlight. Others are dark and cratered, preserving the marks of ancient impacts. Some are active, constantly reshaped from within, while others remain unchanged for billions of years. This diversity exists within a single system, held together by gravity that does not favor one over another. Each moon is allowed to be exactly what it is. There is no comparison, no hierarchy imposed by the system itself. This acceptance can feel reassuring. It suggests that variation does not disrupt harmony. It enriches it. Jupiter's gravity provides the framework, and within that framework, each moon follows its own path. Nothing needs to conform. Nothing needs to change to belong. When you imagine this collection of worlds, it can feel like observing a quiet community where differences coexist naturally. The moons do not collide or interfere unnecessarily. They move with awareness of one another, guided by invisible forces that maintain balance. This peaceful coexistence offers a gentle model for how systems can support diversity without conflict, allowing each part to remain distinct while still connected to the whole. As awareness continues to drift through Jupiter's moon system, the sense of scale gently expands. Dozens of worlds move in steady orbits, each repeating its journey through space without hurry. There is no single focal point demanding attention. The eye can move freely from one moon to another, following slow arcs that never end. This endless motion without destination can feel deeply restful. The moons do not seek arrival. They are already where they belong. Their paths are complete simply by continuing. Jupiter remains at the center, not as a ruler, but as a steady presence that holds everything together. The moons respond naturally, moving in harmony rather than obedience. This relationship removes tension. Nothing is forced. Everything flows. As thoughts follow these gentle orbits, they may begin to mirror the same pattern, circling quietly without pressure, drifting without urgency. Jupiter's family of moons offers a peaceful image of connection and balance, where many worlds move together through space, guided by something constant and calm, continuing their slow, predictable paths as awareness rests within the steady rhythm of motion that never needs to end. As attention moves gently from Jupiter's many moons, one world begins to stand out not because it is calm, but because of how differently it expresses motion. Io is a moon shaped by fire, yet it exists within a rhythm that is slow and steady. It orbits Jupiter quietly, completing its path again and again with perfect regularity. This slow orbital rhythm contrasts sharply with what happens on its surface. Io is the most volcanically active world in the entire solar system. Hundreds of volcanoes cover its surface, some erupting constantly, others waiting silently before releasing molten material into space. Yet even with all this activity, Io does not feel chaotic. Its eruptions are not sudden explosions meant to surprise. They are part of an ongoing process that has continued for millions of years. The heat on Io comes from deep within, generated not by sunlight, but by constant stretching and releasing caused by Jupiter's gravity. This stretching happens gradually, orbit after orbit, building warmth slowly. When you imagine Io, it helps to think of it as a world where energy flows steadily rather than violently. Lava moves across the surface in long, glowing streams, cooling slowly as it spreads. Nothing rushes. Even fire follows rhythm. This balance between intense heat and predictable motion can feel oddly soothing. It reminds us that power does not always feel frantic, and that even the most active places can exist within calm, repeating cycles. One of the most fascinating things about Io is that its volcanic activity is driven by gravity rather than internal leftover heat. As Io orbits Jupiter, it is gently pulled and released by the massive planet and by nearby moons. This constant tugging stretches Io's interior slightly, then allows it to relax over and over again. Each cycle adds a small amount of heat. Over time, this steady input keeps Io's interior warm enough to melt rock. This process is slow and continuous, not sudden. There is no single moment when Io became volcanic. It simply responds to gravity's influence patiently, allowing heat to build and move outward. This can feel calming to imagine. Change does not happen in bursts. It accumulates quietly. The surface we see is the result of countless gentle stretches adding up over time. Io's volcanoes release lava that can travel great distances, reshaping the surface again and again. Craters do not last long here. They are quickly covered by fresh material. This constant renewal makes Io one of the youngest-looking surfaces in the solar system. Yet even renewal happens slowly. The surface changes over years and decades, not moments. When you picture Io glowing softly in the darkness, its lava acting like slow-moving light, it becomes less about destruction and more about balance. Heat rises, cools, and settles, following patterns that repeat endlessly, held within the steady pull of Jupiter's gravity. Io's surface is painted in vivid colors, shaped by volcanic gases that freeze and settle as they fall back down. Yellows, reds, blacks, and whites spread across the landscape, creating patterns that look almost abstract from afar. These colors come from sulfur and other materials released during eruptions. Over time, they settle gently, forming layers that reflect Io's ongoing activity. Even this color does not feel harsh when imagined at a distance. It blends into a soft mosaic, changing slowly as new material appears and older layers are covered. The surface becomes a record of motion rather than a scene of chaos. Each color marks a moment in time, frozen until the next gentle shift. There is no single dominant feature that demands attention. The eye can wander across the surface, following flows that stretch and curve naturally. This wandering can feel relaxing. There is no need to focus. Everything exists together, layered and calm despite the underlying heat. Io teaches us that intense processes can leave behind gentle patterns when they unfold gradually. Fire does not always mean destruction. It can also mean renewal, movement, and continuity. The moon's appearance reflects a balance between constant activity and visual harmony, allowing the mind to observe without tension, resting within the slow rhythm of color and change. Another remarkable aspect of Io is how its volcanic plumes can rise far above the surface, sometimes reaching hundreds of miles into space. These plumes do not burst outward suddenly. They rise smoothly, carried by internal pressure and low gravity. The material spreads outward gently before falling back down in wide arcs. This slow motion makes even dramatic events feel calm. Watching a plume rise on Io is less like an explosion and more like a fountain unfolding in silence. Space itself absorbs the movement, offering no resistance. When the material falls back, it settles softly, adding new layers to the surface below. This process repeats again and again, contributing to Io's constantly changing appearance. Yet there is no urgency to these changes. They happen on timescales that allow the moon to remain stable despite constant activity. The plumes are part of a cycle, not a disruption. They rise, spread, and settle, then rise again somewhere else. This repetition reinforces the idea that motion does not have to be stressful. Even dramatic motion can feel peaceful when it follows predictable patterns. Imagining these plumes in the silence of space can help slow the mind, turning attention away from sharp thoughts and towards smooth, continuous movement that unfolds without sound or pressure. Io's place within Jupiter's system also contributes to its sense of balance. Despite its intense activity, Io maintains a steady orbit, never drifting closer or farther in any noticeable way. Its path is shaped by gravity that remains constant, holding it in place as it moves through space. This stability allows Io's internal processes to continue without interruption. Nothing threatens to push it off course. The moon exists in a reliable relationship with Jupiter, one that has lasted for immense periods of time. This reliability can feel comforting. Even worlds shaped by fire can exist within stable systems. Io's activity does not make it fragile. It makes it dynamic. The moon responds to its environment rather than resisting it. It allows gravity to shape its interior and surface gradually. This cooperation between force and response creates a world that is always changing yet never out of balance. When you imagine Io circling Jupiter, glowing faintly against the darkness, there is no sense of danger. There is only continuity. The moon follows its path, fire rises and settles, and time moves forward without demand. This steady relationship between motion and stability can gently influence the listener's sense of rhythm, encouraging thoughts to move without pressure, following natural cycles rather than chasing conclusions. As awareness continues to rest on Io, the contrast between fire and calm becomes less surprising and more soothing. Heat does not create urgency here. It creates motion that unfolds at its own pace. Lava flows slowly. Plumes rise gently. Colors shift over long periods. All of this happens while Io continues its quiet orbit, repeating the same path endlessly. There is no need for arrival. There is no final state to reach. The moon simply exists within a cycle of stretching, warming, releasing, and cooling. This cycle has no beginning or end. It continues because the conditions that support it remain unchanged. Thinking about Io in this way can soften the mind's response to intensity. Not all heat is overwhelming. Not all activity is stressful. Some forms of motion are deeply steady, grounded in repetition and balance. As the image of Io's glowing surface drifts through awareness, thoughts may begin to mirror that slow rhythm, rising gently and settling back down without urgency, allowing attention to rest within a world where even fire moves calmly, carried by the quiet, reliable pull of gravity, continuing its path through space without needing to stop or change. As attention drifts gently away from Io's glowing surface, it settles naturally on a quieter world nearby. Europa moves around Jupiter in a calm, steady orbit, appearing smooth and pale against the darkness of space. At first glance, Europa looks still, almost frozen in time. Its surface is covered in ice, stretching endlessly in soft whites and faint blues, marked by long cracks that curve gently across the moon. There are very few craters here, which already hints that something unusual is happening beneath the surface. Europa's ice is constantly renewed, slowly shifting and reshaping itself over long periods. This gives the moon a youthful appearance, as though time moves differently here. Beneath that frozen shell lies one of the most intriguing features in the solar system, a vast ocean hidden under miles of ice. This ocean is not restless or stormy. It is dark, quiet, and sealed away from space, warmed gently from below. The idea of such a calm ocean existing in total darkness can feel deeply soothing. It suggests that life and movement do not always need light or attention. Sometimes they exist quietly, unseen, protected by layers that move slowly above. Europa becomes a symbol of hidden calm, a reminder that beneath stillness there can be gentle motion, and beneath cold surfaces there can be warmth, held patiently over immense stretches of time. Europa's hidden ocean is believed to contain more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. This fact alone shifts perspective, encouraging the mind to expand beyond familiar boundaries. An ocean so vast, sealed beneath ice, has likely existed for billions of years without disturbance. It does not experience waves driven by wind or storms shaped by weather. Instead, its motion is guided by subtle forces, slow currents, and gentle warmth rising from the moon's interior. This warmth comes not from sunlight, but from the same gravitational stretching that affects Io, though in a much softer way. As Europa orbits Jupiter, gravity gently flexes the moon, creating a small but steady amount of heat deep below the surface. This heat prevents the ocean from freezing solid. The process is gradual and constant, not dramatic. Nothing about Europa's ocean suggests urgency. It exists in balance, held between cold ice above and gentle warmth below. This balance can feel calming to imagine. The ocean does not need to change quickly to survive. It remains stable through slow, repeating cycles. Even the ice above shifts only slightly, cracking and healing over time. These cracks form long, curved lines that stretch for hundreds of miles, marking places where the ice has moved gently, not violently. Europa's surface becomes a quiet map of slow change, recording movement without disruption, offering a peaceful image of time unfolding beneath frozen stillness. Another gentle truth about Europa is how smooth its surface feels compared to other moons. There are very few large impact craters, which suggests that the ice has been resurfaced repeatedly over long periods. When cracks open, warmer material from below may rise slightly, then freeze again, smoothing over old marks. This process happens slowly, with no sudden events. The surface renews itself quietly, erasing signs of disturbance over time. This gives Europa a soft, almost polished appearance when seen from afar. The absence of deep craters can feel comforting. It suggests a world that absorbs change rather than holding on to it. Nothing lingers in a damaged state for long. Over time, everything is softened and renewed. The ice behaves less like a rigid shell and more like a living surface, flexible and responsive. This flexibility is key to Europa's calm nature. It does not resist the forces acting on it. It adjusts gradually. When you imagine standing above Europa's surface, there is no sense of danger. The ice is thick, stable, and silent. Beneath it, the ocean moves slowly, insulated from the cold vacuum of space. This layered structure creates a sense of protection. Everything has its place. Ice shields water. Water holds warmth. Warmth sustains motion. Each layer supports the next, forming a system that has endured without interruption, offering a peaceful model of balance and resilience. Europa's relationship with Jupiter adds another layer of calm structure to its existence. The Moon's orbit is locked into a steady rhythm, repeating the same path endlessly. This predictability allows its internal processes to remain stable. There are no sudden changes in distance or direction. Gravity remains consistent. The ocean below responds gently to this regular pull, maintaining its warmth and movement without disruption. This rhythm can feel deeply reassuring. It shows how repetition can support stability rather than boredom. Europa's orbit does not lead to wear or collapse. It sustains balance. The Moon exists in a quiet partnership with Jupiter, responding to gravity without resistance. This cooperation shapes Europa's interior and surface over time, creating a world where change is slow and manageable. Even the ice cracks follow patterns influenced by this rhythm, forming arcs and lines that reflect the stresses of repeated motion. These patterns are smooth and flowing, not jagged or sharp. They echo the idea that even under pressure, systems can remain gentle when forces are applied consistently rather than suddenly. Europa becomes a place where time feels stretched, where nothing needs to happen quickly, and where stability comes from steady repetition rather than stillness. The possibility of life within Europa's ocean adds to its quiet mystery, though nothing about this idea needs to feel urgent or dramatic. If life exists there, it would be adapted to darkness, pressure, and slow movement. It would exist without sunlight, without seasons, without sudden change. Such life would likely move gently, conserving energy, responding slowly to its environment. This imagined stillness can feel calming rather than unsettling. It suggests that life does not always need excitement to thrive. Sometimes it flourishes in quiet consistency. Europa's ocean does not need to be explored fully to be meaningful. Its existence alone expands our understanding of where calm, stable environments can exist. It reminds us that mystery does not have to create tension. It can create space for reflection. The unknown beneath Europa's ice remains undisturbed, waiting patiently. Nothing demands discovery. Nothing asks for resolution. The ocean continues to move softly in the dark, following patterns set by gravity and heat that have not changed for ages. This patience can gently influence the listener's own sense of time, easing the need to know or explain everything immediately. As awareness lingers on Europa, the image of a hidden ocean beneath a frozen shell may begin to feel like a metaphor for rest itself. Beneath the surface of thoughts, there can be calm movement, slow and steady, protected from noise and urgency. Europa does not announce its ocean. It hides it, preserving it through layers that change gently over time. This quiet protection allows the ocean to exist without interference. The Moon continues its orbit, the ice continues to shift softly, and the water below continues to flow in darkness. Nothing needs to rise to the surface. Nothing needs to be seen. Everything important can remain hidden and still be sustained. This idea can help the mind soften, allowing thoughts to drift without pressure to surface or resolve. Like Europa's ocean, awareness can move quietly beneath layers of stillness, warmed gently by constant rhythms, continuing peacefully within a world where time unfolds slowly, change happens softly, and calm exists even in the deepest, darkest places, held securely beneath a surface that remains smooth and unbroken. As attention drifts outward from Europa's hidden ocean, it naturally settles on a world defined not by secrecy, but by sheer scale. Ganymede moves around Jupiter with a quiet confidence, holding the title of the largest moon in the entire solar system. It is larger than the planet Mercury, yet it remains a moon gently bound to Jupiter's gravity. This contrast between size and role is part of what makes Ganymede feel so calming to imagine. Despite its enormity, it does not dominate its surroundings. It follows its orbit patiently, repeating the same path over and over again without deviation. When you picture Ganymede, it helps to think of it not as a dramatic world, but as a steady presence. Its size gives it weight, both physically and emotionally, yet nothing about it feels rushed or intense. Ganymede exists as a reminder that something can be vast without being overwhelming. The moon's gravity is strong enough to shape its own structure, yet gentle enough to maintain balance. It holds itself together quietly, moving through space without urgency. This sense of quiet enormity can feel grounding. It invites the mind to expand without tension, to take in scale without feeling small. Ganymede does not ask for attention. It simply exists, large and steady, a silent companion to Jupiter that has been following the same rhythm for billions of years. Ganymede's surface tells a story written slowly over immense stretches of time. Unlike some moons that are either heavily cratered or constantly renewed, Ganymede shows both old and new features layered together. Parts of its surface are dark and ancient, marked by craters that have remained for billions of years. Other regions are lighter and smoother, shaped by processes that slowly reshaped the surface long ago. These lighter areas form grooves and ridges that curve gently across the moon, suggesting movement that happened gradually rather than violently. This layered appearance can feel soothing to observe. It shows that change does not erase the past entirely. Instead, it adds to it. Ganymede carries its history openly, without needing to hide or repair it quickly. The moon's surface reflects patience rather than urgency. Nothing here happens all at once. The forces that shaped Ganymede worked slowly, allowing the moon to adjust over time. This creates a sense of balance between stability and change. The surface is neither frozen in one moment nor constantly disrupted. It exists somewhere in between, holding on to what came before while allowing gentle transformation. When you imagine drifting above Ganymede's surface, the eye can move freely between darker and lighter regions, following patterns that feel natural and unforced. The landscape does not demand interpretation. It simply offers a visual record of time passing quietly, reinforcing the idea that endurance and change can coexist peacefully. One of the most remarkable features of Ganymede is something you cannot see at all. It is the only moon in the solar system known to have its own magnetic field. This invisible field surrounds Ganymede, creating a small protective bubble within Jupiter's much larger magnetic environment. The existence of this magnetic field suggests that Ganymede has a complex internal structure, with layers that allow electrical currents to flow deep inside. This internal activity does not express itself dramatically on the surface. There are no constant eruptions or shifting landscapes. Instead, the magnetic field exists quietly, doing its work without drawing attention. This can feel comforting to imagine. Ganymede carries strength within itself, yet it does not need to display it outwardly. Its magnetic field interacts gently with Jupiter's larger field, creating subtle patterns rather than conflict. The moon exists within Jupiter's influence while maintaining its own identity. This balance between connection and independence can feel reassuring. Ganymede does not resist Jupiter's presence, nor is it lost within it. It simply coexists, contributing its own quiet influence to the system. The magnetic field also hints at a hidden complexity beneath the surface, suggesting that Ganymede is more than it appears. Yet this complexity remains calm and contained. Nothing about it feels unstable or threatening. The unseen structures within Ganymede work steadily, supporting the moon's long-term stability without demanding notice. Beneath Ganymede's surface lies another layer of quiet mystery. Scientists believe that, like Europa, Ganymede may also contain an ocean hidden beneath ice. This ocean would be sandwiched between layers of ice and rock, existing far below the surface in darkness. Unlike Europa's ocean, which may be relatively close to the surface, Ganymede's is thought to be much deeper, insulated by thick layers above. This depth adds to the sense of stillness. The ocean, if it exists, would be shielded from change, moving slowly, unaffected by surface events. The idea of such a deep, hidden ocean can feel profoundly calming. It suggests that beneath even the largest and most solid-looking worlds, there can be softness and movement, protected by time and distance. Ganymede's potential ocean would exist without waves, without storms, without light, guided only by slow internal warmth and gravity. Nothing about this environment feels hurried. It would have had billions of years to settle into balance. This deep calm beneath a massive exterior mirrors the theme of quiet enormity that defines Ganymede. The moon holds vastness both above and below, yet everything remains contained and steady. There is no pressure for discovery, no urgency to explore. The ocean can remain where it is, continuing its slow movement, while the surface above remains unchanged for ages. Ganymede's size also gives it a sense of completeness. Unlike smaller moons that feel like fragments or captured objects, Ganymede feels like a world in its own right. Its gravity is strong enough to shape it into a nearly perfect sphere. It has layers, structure, and internal processes that mirror those of planets, yet it remains gently tied to Jupiter. This dual identity adds to its calm presence. Ganymede does not need to choose between being a moon or a planet. It simply is what it is. Its orbit is stable, its rotation steady, its relationship with Jupiter unchanged over vast spans of time. This stability allows everything within Ganymede to remain balanced. The surface does not crack dramatically. The interior does not shift violently. Even the potential ocean below remains sealed and quiet. This completeness can feel reassuring. Ganymede exists without struggle, fulfilling its role naturally. It does not compete for attention. It does not change suddenly. It continues its slow journey through space, following the same path, turning at the same pace, offering a constant presence within Jupiter's system. This constancy can help the mind relax, letting go of the need for novelty or resolution, settling instead into appreciation of something that simply endures. As awareness continues to rest on Ganymede, its quiet enormity begins to feel less abstract and more comforting. Here is a world larger than a planet, yet calm and contained. It holds ancient surfaces, hidden depths, and invisible fields, all working together without urgency. Nothing about Ganymede demands action or understanding. It does not reveal its mysteries quickly. It allows them to remain layered and protected. This patience can gently influence the rhythm of thought, encouraging a slower pace. Like Ganymede, thoughts can be large without being heavy, complex without being stressful. They can exist quietly, supported by deeper structures that do not need attention. The moon continues its steady orbit, carrying its vastness with ease, moving through space as it always has. There is no destination to reach, no change required. Everything necessary already exists within the system. As the image of Ganymede drifts through awareness, it offers a final sense of scale without pressure, a reminder that size does not have to bring weight, and that even the largest worlds can move gently, continuing their quiet journey through time and space, unchanged and unhurried, held securely within the calm gravity that surrounds them. As the journey through Jupiter's moons continues, attention settles on a world that feels slower, quieter, and more reflective than the rest. Callisto moves along the outer edge of Jupiter's major moons, circling at a gentle distance, untouched by the intense forces that shape its neighbors. From afar, Callisto appears dark and ancient, its surface covered in countless craters that stretch back through billions of years. Unlike other moons that are constantly reshaped by internal heat or gravitational stretching, Callisto has remained mostly unchanged. It holds its history openly, preserving the marks of impacts that occurred when the solar system was still young. This preservation gives Callisto a feeling of memory, as though it is quietly holding onto the past without needing to move on from it. The surface does not renew itself quickly. Craters remain where they formed, overlapping one another in soft, rounded patterns. Nothing rushes to erase them. This stillness can feel deeply calming. Callisto does not resist time, nor does it hurry forward. It simply allows time to pass, collecting its moments gently. When you imagine drifting above Callisto's surface, there is no sense of activity or demand. The landscape rests exactly as it has for ages, offering a place where change is minimal and continuity is preserved. Callisto becomes a reminder that not all worlds need to evolve quickly, and that there is comfort in places where time leaves its mark softly and then moves on, allowing memory itself to become part of the landscape. One of the most striking features of Callisto is how heavily cratered its surface is. More craters cover Callisto than almost any other object in the solar system, creating a texture that feels layered and deep. Each crater tells a story of an impact long past, frozen in place without being smoothed away by later activity. This makes Callisto a kind of record keeper, preserving a history that other moons have lost. The craters overlap gently, forming patterns that are rounded rather than sharp. Over time, even these impacts have softened, their edges worn down by countless cycles of freezing and thawing. This gradual softening removes any sense of violence from the events that created them. What remains is a quiet record, a surface shaped by time rather than force. This can feel comforting to reflect on. Even dramatic moments eventually become calm memories. Callisto shows how time can smooth even the deepest marks, turning disruption into gentle texture. The moon's surface does not hide its past. It accepts it fully, allowing each event to remain visible without being overwhelming. When the mind rests on this idea, it can begin to see its own memories differently, not as sharp disruptions, but as softened impressions that no longer demand attention. Callisto's ancient surface invites this gentler view of time, where the past is acknowledged and held, not erased or relived, simply present as part of a larger, quiet story. Callisto's distance from Jupiter plays an important role in its calm nature. Orbiting farther away than Io, Europa, or Ganymede, Callisto experiences far less gravitational stretching. This means there is very little internal heat-driving change beneath its surface. The moon remains cold and stable, with no active volcanism or shifting ice layers. This lack of internal activity allows Callisto to remain structurally unchanged over immense periods. Nothing inside pushes outward. Nothing demands renewal. The surface stays as it is, resting in a state of long-term balance. This distance creates a sense of isolation that feels peaceful rather than lonely. Callisto exists quietly on the outskirts, not pulled into the constant interactions closer to Jupiter. Its orbit is steady and predictable, repeating the same path without variation. This predictability supports the moon's role as a preserver rather than a transformer. When you imagine Callisto moving through space, it feels like watching something drift calmly at the edge of activity, untouched by urgency. This perspective can be deeply soothing. Not everything needs to be at the center to matter. Callisto shows that there is value in distance, in remaining slightly removed from constant change. The moon's quiet path allows it to maintain its identity, holding onto its ancient surface without interruption, offering a place where stillness itself becomes meaningful. Despite its frozen appearance, Callisto is not entirely simple beneath the surface. Scientists believe it may contain a deep, hidden ocean buried far below layers of ice and rock. If this ocean exists, it would be insulated from the cold surface, warmed gently by internal processes that operate very slowly. This potential ocean would be far removed from the activity seen on Europa or Io, existing quietly without strong tidal forces shaping it. The depth of this hidden layer adds to Callisto's sense of calm. Any movement within would be slow, subtle, and steady, untouched by surface events. This idea reinforces the theme of preservation rather than change. Even if water flows beneath Callisto's surface, it does so without disturbing what lies above. The surface remains a stable archive of the past, while deeper layers quietly continue their own slow processes. This layered structure can feel reassuring. It suggests that stillness and movement can coexist without conflict. Not everything that moves needs to reshape what rests above it. Callisto allows both states to exist together. When you imagine this hidden ocean, it does not create excitement or tension. It simply adds depth to the moon's quiet presence, offering another reminder that complexity does not always need expression, and that some of the most enduring systems operate gently, far from view. Callisto's surface is also one of the oldest in the solar system, largely untouched since its formation. This age gives it a sense of endurance that is rare among worlds. While other moons have been reshaped, resurfaced, or transformed, Callisto remains much as it was. This endurance does not feel stagnant. It feels intentional, as though the moon has chosen to remain as it is. Its surface absorbs the slow passage of time without resistance. Even impacts become part of the landscape rather than interruptions to it. This acceptance of change without reaction is one of Callisto's most calming qualities. The moon does not respond dramatically to events. It allows them to happen and then continues, unchanged in its essence. This quality can gently influence the listener's emotional pace, encouraging acceptance rather than resistance. Callisto demonstrates that stability does not mean absence of experience. It means allowing experiences to settle naturally. The moon's ancient surface holds everything that has happened to it, yet nothing feels unresolved. Everything belongs. When the mind reflects on this, it may begin to release the need to process or fix every memory, trusting instead that time will soften edges naturally, allowing experiences to become part of a larger, calmer whole. As awareness lingers on Callisto, the moon begins to feel like a quiet archive drifting through space. It carries the past without weight, preserving moments without reliving them. Its frozen surface rests under the stars, unchanged, unhurried, and complete. Callisto does not compete for attention among Jupiter's moons. It waits patiently on the edge, offering stillness rather than activity. This stillness can feel deeply comforting, especially as the emotional pace continues to slow. There is nothing here that asks to be understood quickly. Nothing needs explanation. The craters, the ice, the distance, all exist together in gentle balance. Callisto's slow orbit continues, its surface unchanged as centuries pass. Time leaves its marks, but they do not disrupt. They become part of the moon's quiet identity. As thoughts follow this image, they may begin to slow as well, settling into a rhythm that values preservation over progress, rest over movement. Like Callisto, the mind can hold its memories gently, allowing them to exist without pressure, drifting quietly through time, unchanged and at peace, supported by the calm stability of a world that has learned how to remain. As attention rests on Jupiter's system as a whole, the most soothing pattern begins to emerge not from any single world, but from their shared motion. Jupiter's moons move in steady, repeating orbits, tracing the same paths through space again and again. This repetition creates a sense of rhythm that feels almost musical, though there is no sound. Each moon follows a predictable schedule shaped by gravity, returning to familiar positions without variation. Nothing rushes. Nothing surprises. This regularity can feel deeply comforting, especially when compared to the unpredictability often found closer to home. Jupiter's moons do not wander. They do not hesitate. Their paths are defined and dependable, offering a sense of order that unfolds naturally. When you imagine these orbits, it can feel like watching slow waves roll across a calm sea, each crest following the last in a steady sequence. The moons are always moving, yet nothing changes abruptly. This balance between motion and predictability helps the mind relax. There is no need to anticipate what comes next, because what comes next has already happened countless times before. The gravitational pull of Jupiter acts like a steady beat, guiding each moon into its place within the system. Over millions of years, these rhythms have remained intact, showing how stability can arise from repetition. As awareness settles into this pattern, thoughts may begin to slow, aligning themselves with the same gentle cadence, moving forward without pressure, supported by the reassurance that everything is unfolding exactly as it has before. One of the most remarkable aspects of these orbital rhythms is how some of Jupiter's largest moons are locked into a precise timing relationship with one another. Their orbits are synchronized in a repeating pattern that ensures they never drift into unstable positions. This relationship means that for every orbit one moon completes, another completes a set number of orbits, maintaining balance within the system. This coordination is not forced or adjusted constantly. It is a natural outcome of gravity working steadily over long periods of time. The moons respond to one another gently, making tiny adjustments that keep the rhythm intact. This interaction can feel soothing to imagine. It shows that harmony does not require control. It emerges naturally when forces remain consistent. The moons do not communicate or plan. They simply follow the paths shaped by gravity, and in doing so, they create a pattern that supports stability. This predictable relationship reduces the chance of sudden changes, allowing the system to remain calm over immense spans of time. When you picture this synchronized motion, it can feel like watching a slow dance where every step has already been practiced for millions of years. There is no uncertainty. Each movement flows into the next seamlessly. This sense of practiced rhythm can ease the mind, offering reassurance that some systems are designed to remain balanced without effort, continuing their quiet repetition long after individual moments have passed. These orbital rhythms also help distribute energy gently throughout Jupiter's system. As moons move in their steady paths, slight variations in distance and alignment create subtle gravitational interactions. These interactions are not dramatic. They do not disrupt the orbits. Instead, they create small, repeating influences that shape the internal processes of some moons over time. This energy transfer happens gradually, orbit by orbit, without sudden spikes. The rhythm itself becomes a way of managing energy, spreading it evenly rather than allowing it to build up abruptly. This can feel calming to reflect on. Energy does not need to be released suddenly to be effective. It can flow steadily, guided by predictable motion. Jupiter's system demonstrates how repetition can be a form of balance, allowing change to happen slowly and sustainably. The moons do not exhaust themselves. They do not collide. They simply continue, adjusting gently within their established paths. This approach to movement offers a contrast to the idea that progress requires disruption. Here, progress is measured in consistency. Over time, small influences add up, shaping worlds without urgency. The steady rhythm allows everything to remain in place, offering a sense of continuity that can help quiet racing thoughts, replacing them with a feeling of trust in patterns that repeat reliably. Another comforting element of these orbital rhythms is how they create a natural sense of time within the system. Each moon's orbit acts like a slow clock, marking the passage of time without sound or numbers. Days and years on these moons are defined by their movement around Jupiter, not by the rising and setting of a sun as on Earth. This alternative sense of time feels less demanding. There are no deadlines, no alarms, no countdowns. Time passes simply because motion continues. The orbits do not speed up or slow down dramatically. They remain steady, offering a consistent measure of duration. This can help the mind let go of urgency. Time becomes something that flows rather than something that presses. Jupiter's moons show that time does not always need to be tracked actively. It can be experienced passively through gentle repetition. When you imagine the moons completing one orbit after another, it can feel like watching breath follow breath, each cycle similar to the last, each one complete on its own. This cyclical view of time encourages rest rather than anticipation. There is no need to hurry toward the next moment, because it will arrive naturally, carried by the same rhythm that has always been there. The predictability of Jupiter's orbital rhythms also creates a sense of safety within the system. Because the paths of the moons are so well established, there is little chance of sudden disruption. Orbits remain stable over millions of years, providing a dependable framework for everything within the system. This stability allows the moons to exist without constant adjustment. They do not need to correct their paths frequently. Gravity holds them securely, guiding them along routes that have been tested by time. This sense of reliability can feel deeply reassuring. It suggests that not all motion leads to uncertainty. Some movement is designed to repeat, offering comfort through familiarity. Jupiter's system becomes a place where change happens slowly, if at all, and where patterns persist long enough to be trusted. This trust can gently influence emotional pacing, encouraging the listener to relax into repetition rather than resist it. Just as the moons follow their orbits without hesitation, thoughts can follow gentle paths without pressure, returning to familiar places rather than chasing new ones. The system does not demand attention. It functions quietly, allowing everything within it to move freely while remaining supported. As awareness continues to drift through these orbital rhythms, the repeating dance of Jupiter's moons begins to feel like a steady background presence rather than something to focus on directly. The motion becomes predictable enough that it fades into calm awareness. There is nothing to watch closely, nothing to track. The rhythm simply exists, carrying everything along. This can create a deep sense of rest. When patterns repeat without interruption, the mind no longer needs to stay alert. It can soften, trusting that nothing unexpected will happen. Jupiter's moons continue their orbits whether they are observed or not. Their movement does not depend on attention. This independence can feel freeing. There is no responsibility to monitor or control. Everything is already in balance. As the system continues its slow, repeating dance, thoughts may begin to mirror that steadiness, circling gently without urgency, settling into familiar rhythms of their own. The predictable motion of the moons becomes a quiet invitation to rest, to allow awareness to drift without direction, supported by a gravitational rhythm that has never failed, continuing endlessly through space, carrying worlds along the same calm paths over and over again. When you begin to think about time as it exists around Jupiter, it naturally starts to feel different from time on Earth. Jupiter moves through space on a scale that stretches human urgency until it thins and fades. One full orbit of Jupiter around the Sun takes nearly 12 Earth years. That means an entire childhood could pass on Earth while Jupiter completes just one slow journey through its seasons. This long orbit shapes everything about the planet, from the way sunlight touches its clouds to how slowly change unfolds across its atmosphere. Nothing about Jupiter feels rushed. The planet does not respond quickly to moments. It responds to eras. When you imagine Jupiter moving along its path, there is no sense of countdown or deadline. The planet is never late. It arrives exactly when gravity brings it there. This longer view of time can feel deeply comforting. It removes the pressure to measure moments precisely. Jupiter does not divide its existence into hours or days the way we do. It simply continues. Its position shifts gradually, almost imperceptibly, while years pass elsewhere. This perspective gently loosens the mind's grip on urgency. If time can move so slowly and still remain meaningful, then perhaps not every moment needs to be filled or optimized. Jupiter's long orbit invites awareness to stretch outward, to rest within the idea that time does not need to be chased to be real. Even Jupiter's sense of day and night challenges familiar ideas of time. The planet rotates very quickly, completing a full turn in less than 10 Earth hours. Yet because Jupiter is so large, this fast rotation does not feel hurried. Instead, it creates long, flowing cloud bands that circle the planet smoothly. A Jovian day passes quietly, without sharp transitions between light and dark. There is no solid surface casting shadows or marking hours. Light spreads across clouds and fades gently. This contrast between fast rotation and calm appearance can help reframe how we think about speed. Quick motion does not always feel fast. On Jupiter, scale softens everything. The planet turns quickly, yet nothing seems frantic. This teaches an important lesson about time. Speed and urgency are not the same thing. Something can move rapidly and still feel calm when it is supported by balance and scale. Jupiter's rotation has remained steady for billions of years. It does not speed up or slow down noticeably. Each rotation follows the last with quiet consistency. This regularity creates a dependable rhythm, one that does not ask to be monitored. The planet does not count its days. It simply turns. This effortless passage of time can feel soothing to imagine, encouraging the listener to release the habit of watching the clock, allowing moments to pass without measurement or concern. Jupiter's storms offer another way to understand time on a planetary scale. Some of these storms have existed for centuries, persisting through generations of observers. On Earth, storms are brief, demanding attention and response. On Jupiter, storms are part of the background, unfolding so slowly that they feel permanent. The Great Red Spot has been turning for hundreds of years, changing shape gradually rather than ending. This longevity reframes time as something expansive rather than fleeting. A storm does not need to finish quickly to be meaningful. It can exist within time instead of racing against it. Jupiter's storms are shaped by steady energy that does not fluctuate dramatically. This allows them to persist, adjusting gently rather than collapsing. When you imagine these storms, it becomes easier to release the idea that all processes must resolve. Some things simply continue. They change slowly, in ways that are almost imperceptible from one moment to the next. This slow evolution encourages patience. If a storm can take centuries to change, then perhaps thoughts and feelings do not need immediate resolution either. Jupiter's atmosphere demonstrates that time can be generous, allowing systems to exist without pressure to conclude. This generosity can feel deeply calming, offering permission to let experiences unfold naturally rather than pushing them toward an outcome. The moons of Jupiter further expand this sense of time by moving in orbits that repeat endlessly. Each moon follows a predictable path, returning to the same positions again and again over periods that range from days to weeks. These cycles continue without interruption, creating a reliable sense of duration. Time here is marked by repetition rather than progression. Nothing is gained or lost when a moon completes an orbit. It simply begins again. This cyclical time contrasts sharply with linear human schedules that move from one task to the next. Jupiter's system shows that time does not always need to advance toward something new. It can circle back, offering familiarity and rest. The moons do not grow tired of their paths. They do not seek change. They exist comfortably within repetition. This can help the mind soften its relationship with time. Instead of seeing time as something slipping away, it can be seen as something returning, offering the same moments in different forms. Jupiter's moons teach that repetition does not mean stagnation. It means stability. Over millions of years, these orbits have remained reliable, providing a steady framework for everything within the system. This reliability can feel deeply reassuring, encouraging awareness to rest within patterns that do not demand progress or urgency. Time on Jupiter is also shaped by how slowly deep changes occur. The planet's internal heat, its magnetic field, and its atmosphere all evolve over immense timescales. Changes that might feel dramatic on Earth take thousands or millions of years to unfold here. This slow pace allows systems to remain stable even as they change. Jupiter does not experience sudden transformations. Everything happens gradually, buffered by scale and mass. This long-term view of time can ease anxiety. It suggests that meaningful change does not require immediate action. Jupiter has been releasing internal heat slowly since its formation, cooling at a pace that will continue for billions of years. Nothing about this process feels urgent. It unfolds naturally, without intervention. The planet does not rush to become something else. It remains what it is while change happens quietly in the background. This can help reframe personal experiences of time. Not every shift needs to be noticed or managed. Some changes can happen gently, without awareness, while life continues calmly on the surface. Jupiter's slow internal processes remind us that time can be kind, allowing space for adjustment rather than forcing quick decisions or reactions. As awareness settles into this Jovian sense of time, urgency begins to lose its grip. Time becomes something wide and forgiving rather than narrow and demanding. Jupiter does not count minutes. It does not hurry through years. It moves through cycles that stretch beyond human experience, offering a model of patience that feels deeply restful. The planet's long orbit, steady rotation, enduring storms, repeating moon cycles, and slow internal changes all point toward a version of time that does not pressure or rush. Instead, time becomes a container, holding events gently as they unfold. This perspective can help the listener release the feeling that time is always running out. On a Jovian scale, time simply continues, wide enough to hold everything without strain. Moments do not need to be filled or used. They can exist quietly, like Jupiter itself, moving through space without urgency, allowing awareness to rest within the idea that there is enough time, always enough time, stretching outward in calm, steady cycles that do not demand attention, only presence, continuing softly as thoughts slow and the sense of hurry fades naturally away. As awareness drifts farther from motion and scale, it begins to notice something even more profound around Jupiter: silence. Not the quiet of a paused room or a distant night, but a complete absence of sound. Space around Jupiter is utterly soundless, because sound needs air to travel, and there is no air between worlds. Even the largest storms, the fastest winds, and the most powerful forces make no noise at all. Jupiter can be raging with motion, yet nothing is heard. This silence is not empty or cold. It is full in its own way, like a deep stillness that holds everything gently. Imagining this can feel deeply calming. There is no background hum, no echo, no sudden interruption. Every movement happens without sound, allowing the mind to rest without distraction. Near Jupiter, silence is not the absence of activity. It is the absence of disturbance. The planet turns, storms swirl, moons orbit, all within a quiet that remains untouched. This kind of silence feels safe. Nothing can intrude. Nothing can startle. It exists naturally, not enforced. When you imagine floating near Jupiter, there is no rush of wind, no vibration. Only the soft presence of motion without sound. This reminds us that silence does not mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening without demand. The silence of space offers permission to stop listening outward and begin settling inward, letting awareness soften into the quiet that surrounds all things. Even Jupiter's immense magnetic field, stretching millions of miles into space, creates no sound. Charged particles move, energy flows, and invisible forces shape the region around the planet, yet nothing reaches the ear. This is because space does not carry sound waves the way air does. What might be thunderous elsewhere remains silent here. This idea can feel comforting. Power does not need volume. Influence does not need noise. Jupiter's magnetic environment is active and complex, yet it unfolds in total quiet. When solar particles meet Jupiter's magnetic field, they are guided and redirected without collision or sound. The interaction is smooth and continuous, like two currents meeting in still water. This silent exchange reinforces the sense that space is a place where intensity does not overwhelm. Everything happens gently, even when forces are strong. The auroras glowing near Jupiter's poles would be spectacular to see, yet they shimmer in silence, painting light across the planet without a single sound. Imagining these lights glowing quietly can help slow the mind. There is beauty without noise, motion without urgency. The silence becomes a backdrop that supports calm rather than emptiness. It allows attention to settle without being pulled outward. Jupiter's environment teaches that silence can be active and alive, holding movement and change within a quiet that never breaks, offering a place where awareness can rest without needing to respond. The vast distances between Jupiter and its moons also contribute to this deep silence. Even though the moons move constantly, orbiting at great speeds, their motion creates no sound in the vacuum of space. Each moon follows its path in perfect quiet, separated by immense distances that absorb any possibility of noise. This spacing creates a sense of openness that feels calming rather than lonely. There is room for everything to move without interference. The moons never brush past one another. They do not collide or crowd. They exist in their own lanes, guided by gravity and wrapped in silence. This separation allows motion to feel gentle. Nothing presses against anything else. When you imagine the moons circling Jupiter, it can feel like watching a slow, silent ballet, each movement precise and unhurried. The silence allows the pattern to stand on its own, uninterrupted. There is no soundtrack, no rhythm imposed from outside. The rhythm comes from motion itself. This can help the mind release its need for stimulation. Silence does not mean boredom. It means space. Space for thought to slow, space for attention to drift without being pulled. Jupiter's system exists within this quiet naturally, showing how complex systems can function smoothly without sound, reinforcing the idea that rest does not require stopping, only the removal of noise. Even light behaves gently in this silence. Sunlight reaching Jupiter is far weaker than it is near Earth, spreading softly across the planet's clouds. There are no sharp glares or sudden flashes. Light fades gradually, creating long transitions rather than abrupt changes. This softness adds to the quiet feeling of the environment. Without atmosphere to scatter sound, space allows light to exist without accompaniment. No crackle, no hum, just illumination moving silently. When Jupiter passes through different parts of its long orbit, the change in light happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. Seasons shift without announcement. This quiet transition can feel deeply soothing. It removes the need to mark time actively. Light comes and goes without signaling. Darkness arrives gently. In this environment, the mind does not need to prepare or react. Everything unfolds smoothly. Even shadows on Jupiter's clouds drift without sound, stretching and dissolving as the planet turns. This silent play of light and dark encourages relaxation. It mirrors the way thoughts can fade when not reinforced by noise. Without sound, attention naturally turns inward. Jupiter's silent environment offers a model for rest that does not require effort. Simply removing noise allows calm to emerge on its own, like light settling softly across distant clouds. The silence around Jupiter also means that distance feels deeper and more complete. Without sound to connect objects, each world exists fully within itself. This can feel surprisingly comforting. There is no constant signal demanding awareness. Nothing calls out. Each moon, each cloud band, each storm exists quietly, without competing for attention. This allows awareness to choose where to rest. Silence gives permission to drift. It removes the sense of obligation to respond. In Jupiter's environment, nothing asks for urgency. Everything simply is. This can help the listener let go of the feeling that something must always be happening. Silence becomes a companion rather than a void. It supports rest by removing expectation. The vast space around Jupiter holds everything without pressure, allowing motion to continue without noise. This environment encourages a slower pace of thought, one that does not jump from sound to sound. Instead, attention can settle into a single idea and remain there without interruption. Jupiter's silence shows that presence does not need stimulation to exist. It thrives when noise falls away, leaving only gentle awareness of motion, light, and space, all unfolding without sound. As the sense of silence deepens, it begins to feel less external and more internal. The quiet around Jupiter mirrors a quiet that can exist within awareness itself. Just as space carries motion without sound, the mind can carry thoughts without noise. Jupiter's environment does not amplify. It absorbs. This absorption allows everything to continue smoothly. Nothing echoes. Nothing lingers. Each moment passes and dissolves naturally. This quality can gently prepare the mind for rest. Without sound, there is no need to track or react. Awareness can float, supported by the same silence that surrounds planets and moons. Jupiter continues its slow turn. The moons continue their orbits. Light continues to arrive and fade. All of it happens without sound, without announcement. This silent continuation offers a sense of safety and completion. There is nothing missing. There is nothing to wait for. Silence becomes a place to rest rather than a gap to fill. As thoughts soften within this quiet, they may begin to slow on their own, settling into the same calm rhythm as space itself, where everything exists peacefully, moving gently, wrapped in a silence that does not end, does not intrude, and does not require anything in return. As everything you've heard begins to settle, it can feel as though the journey itself is slowly drifting to a stop. Jupiter no longer needs to be explored or explained. It simply remains vast and steady, turning quietly in the dark. After moving through its clouds, its storms, its gravity, and its many moons, there is nothing left to reach for. The giant planet continues on its path without concern for attention or understanding. You don't need to follow it anymore. You can allow it to drift gently into the background, like a familiar presence that no longer needs to be watched. Jupiter's enormity no longer feels distant or overwhelming. It feels grounding. Its scale has stretched time enough that urgency has softened, leaving space for stillness to take its place. In this stillness, thoughts don't need to disappear. They can slow naturally, just as Jupiter's system moves without hurry. Nothing is pushing you forward now. There are no facts to remember, no images to hold on to. Everything has already done its work simply by being present. The mind can rest here, balanced between awareness and release, the way Jupiter rests between motion and calm. As the planet continues its endless rotation, you are free to stop moving inwardly, letting awareness float instead of travel, allowing the sense of completion to arrive without effort. It can help to imagine yourself drifting farther away from Jupiter now, not quickly, but slowly, as if carried by the same quiet forces that guide its moons. The planet becomes smaller, though it never truly disappears. Its presence lingers, like a memory that no longer asks for attention. Around you, space remains silent and still. There is nothing to listen for and nothing to respond to. This silence does not feel empty. It feels complete. Just as Jupiter's storms could exist without sound, your thoughts can exist without noise. They may still move, but they do not need to speak. They do not need to form clear shapes. They can pass like faint currents, barely noticed. As distance increases, details soften. The sharpness of focus fades. There is no need to picture anything clearly now. The journey has already unfolded. What remains is a gentle sense of motion slowing down, like the last moments of a long day easing into night. Jupiter continues on without you watching. Its moons continue their orbits whether they are observed or not. Nothing depends on your attention. This realization can feel deeply relaxing. You are allowed to stop paying attention. You are allowed to rest fully, trusting that everything continues exactly as it should. Time here no longer feels measured or divided. There is no sense of before or after, only a smooth continuation. Jupiter's long cycles have already shown that time can be wide and forgiving. Now, that same feeling can settle into your awareness. There is no pressure to fall asleep. Sleep does not need to be achieved. It arrives naturally when effort fades. Like Jupiter's gravity shaping paths without force, rest arrives when resistance softens. The body already knows how to do this. The mind does not need to guide it. Thoughts may still appear, but they can move slowly, unconnected, without urgency. There is no need to follow them to their end. They can drift, loop, or fade, just as Jupiter's moons circle endlessly without needing to stop. Even if awareness remains for a while, that is perfectly fine. Stillness does not require unconsciousness. It only requires the absence of pressure. In this space, nothing needs to change. Breathing continues on its own. The body settles where it is supported. The quiet that surrounded Jupiter now surrounds you as well, offering the same calm environment where motion can exist without effort and rest can arrive without instruction. You may notice that your sense of scale has shifted. Small concerns feel farther away, less defined. Like distant stars, they remain somewhere beyond immediate awareness, no longer demanding focus. Jupiter's vastness has done what it does best. It has made room. Room for quiet. Room for softness. Room for the mind to stop narrowing itself around details. In this expanded space, thoughts lose their sharp edges. Feelings become less intense. Everything spreads out gently, making it easier to let go. This is not something you have to do. It happens naturally when the mind is no longer being pulled forward. Jupiter never rushed, and now neither do you. There is nothing waiting on the other side of this moment. No conclusion to reach. No insight to hold. The experience has already been complete simply by unfolding. You can rest in that completeness now, allowing awareness to become lighter, more diffuse. Like drifting farther into space, the sense of self can soften, becoming less defined, less central. Nothing is lost in this softening. It is simply a return to balance, the same balance that holds planets in orbit and keeps systems stable without effort. As this final moment stretches gently onward, it may feel as though the journey through Jupiter has become less like a story and more like a feeling. A sense of calm scale. A sense of patience. A sense that everything meaningful unfolds in its own time. These feelings do not need to be held onto. They can remain in the background, like the faint presence of a planet you no longer see but know is still there. If sleep begins to arrive now, there is nothing to do. You do not need to follow it. You can allow it to take you naturally, just as gravity allows moons to settle into their paths. And if sleep does not arrive right away, that is equally fine. Rest is already happening. The mind is no longer racing. The body is no longer alert. Everything has slowed enough to be safe. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. Jupiter continues its quiet journey through space, unconcerned with observation. You can do the same, letting awareness drift without direction, supported by the calm understanding that nothing is required of you in this moment. If you're still listening, know that you don't need to stay awake for what comes next. This is a place where the story no longer needs words. You can allow the sound of this voice to fade into the background, just another gentle presence that does not demand attention. If you find comfort in returning to these journeys, you're always welcome here. You can subscribe, return another night, or simply let this moment be enough. For now, there is nothing more to explore, nothing more to understand. The giant planet has already offered its lesson in stillness, scale, and patience. You can carry that feeling with you, or you can let it go completely. Both are perfectly fine. As awareness continues to soften, you may notice that even the idea of drifting fades, replaced by quiet rest. Like Jupiter moving endlessly through the dark, you can let go of effort now, allowing sleep to arrive in its own time, gently, naturally, without needing to be invited, as everything settles into the calm that has been waiting all along.